Enlightenment. Thank you for allowing me into your homes for this second edition of Season 3 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. This evening we are obviously on, for those that are watching, on Thursdays at 10 tonight. Now this is likely going to be the last time we're going to be broadcasting at this time and this day for this upcoming season. It looks as if we're going to start having the show on Fridays at 8 on channel 16, and our original intention with changing, trying to rearrange things to 16 was to be available to folks in Cedar Park in addition to the Austin metro area. And so inadvertently that worked to our disadvantage because now we have to compromise with a time slot, which looks like again is going to be Friday at 8 on channel 16. And so traditionally there aren't any shows, awareness type shows on that day, so maybe we can kind of help fill the void and kind of fill out the week a bit by it working out that way. So I'm going to look at it it's with the best, putting the best face forward on it and trying to make that get the best out of that time slot as possible. So folks will be aware that we're more than likely, unless something else changes that we're unaware of, are going to end up being on again Fridays 8 o'clock on channel 16. Although we won't be here for Halloween Friday, we should be live November the 7th. And I'll discuss a bit about that broadcast in a bit as well. So again, I'd like to thank folks that are up and joining us for this live show for October the 23rd. And bear with us as the show time hopefully pans out. Let's see. First, I would like to make mention that there will be a new magazine that's going to be devoted to metaphysical and political ideas, and devoting their articles and their space in the magazine to things of that nature. And so I really want to bring people's attention to the fact that this magazine is coming around. Certainly folks may be aware of the Austin Paratimes magazine, which is a free publication that offers a lot of information along those lines as well. Maybe not so much on the spiritual angle, they're a bit more political, excuse me. But nonetheless, this magazine is going to try to strike more of a balance, excuse me, strike more of a balance between the spiritual and the political aspects of the awareness shows, in particular that you find on Access, and people that are talking about these types of topics. And so I would like to commend Wendy and Julie, the two individuals that are putting the magazine together, for all their hard work. They're going to be laying out about 7,000 copies in various locations around the city in a few weeks. And it's going to be a very nicely put together magazine with a nice glossy cover, and it's going to be, you know, a really, really nice magazine. And the best thing of all is it's going to be completely free. They're not going to charge for this magazine whatsoever, and you're going to find articles inside the magazine by myself. George Humphrey is contributing to this magazine as well, and so there is a relation to Access Television that's being garnished and garnered through the relations with this magazine. And so hopefully it can continue to be just another outlet for information that can help complement what's being done here through some of the live shows, through some of the awareness shows here on Access. And so I want to commend, again, both Wendy and Julie for the time and effort that they put together to come up with a concept and really make this thing happen. Their enthusiasm is very contagious, and I was really glad to be able to meet with them earlier today and discuss some ideas about the magazine. And they'll also be guests on a future show in a few weeks. So please stay tuned for that as well, and we'll get people more information about this magazine. Again, it's going to be completely free, so you can't hardly beat that with a stick. So I would just ask people that they be ready to check this new magazine out. It's called Duality. And to go on to this evening's topic at hand, I would like to discuss intuition and to consider some aspects of intuition and how exactly intuition plays itself out in our daily lives. And one of the main points I always try to caution people about and try to hammer home is to trust oneself, to trust one's intuition, to trust one's inner voice, inner feeling, urges, what have you, and to understand that there's a reason why you're having these gnawing sensations, why these little different things may vibe you a certain way or not, depending. And you may find that something is perhaps more attractive to you or more repulsive to you. and you're going to either steer clear of something or you're going to be drawn to something accordingly. And that all ties into trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition, and going upon that understanding, that inner sense that will allow us to discern oftentimes from what may potentially be a bad situation from a good situation. And that may be derived from something as simple as driving, and just maybe not knowing where one is very well and thinking, okay, should I go left, should I go right? I mean, that is how we learn the ABCs of trusting ourselves with the intuition, these little baby steps of understanding and trusting ourselves. Because it's a difficult thing for many people to just rely on a feeling, because in this day and age, so much is emphasized on mind and the mental apparatus and the thinking process and reason, that if we can't, lay something out in a certain manner, things aren't provable, then oftentimes people are fearful of extending some trust or just suspending disbelief for a second and considering, just by following their inner urges, what direction to take, or just again trusting themselves and following that inner urge and not second guessing that inner urge as well. That's another key concept of that as well, because sometimes intuitive flashes are very quick and they're heat of the moment intuitive flashes, and if we don't intuit properly at that time, we may find ourselves in a dire situation as well. That's not always the case, but it's just another example to tie into this, that trusting one's own inner urges is very important, especially in this day and age, as we are in this period of constant flux and turmoil. And it's behooves us, and it's helpful to have as much of a leg up as possible in our daily lives, and to have some advantage over just the daily affairs, because situations can overwhelm us very often. And in order to have somewhat of an oar to steer with, amidst all of the turmoil of the ocean, it's a good idea to have, again, these tools that we can fall back on to help us steer, to have some sense of direction. And even though that may be kind of a blind, again, trusting oneself, and having some sense of, again, just suspending disbelief for a second and allowing oneself to take a chance. And that's a key thing too. Again, letting go of fear and being willing to take a chance. So that's a very important aspect of that as well. Now, also considering that intuition is of the nature of the soul. It's derived from that aspect of our being, and that is why we can rest assured when we can trust that intuitive sense that we can rely upon it. And it does take some time for us to, again, go through the baby steps, the little simple intuitive exercises we can do to come to a fuller understanding, and that allowing and trusting that one can have of one's own self. And that falls in with the old saying that the Greeks had as well, man, know thyself. When you know yourself well enough, you can trust yourself to make the proper decisions at the right time. It definitely falls back on the idea of trusting oneself. And even as simple as taking an exam, when you feel like, your first impulse is to pick maybe A on a multiple choice, and then you second guess and you erase it and you go for B or another answer, and only to find out that, hey, your first intuitive response to that question was the right response. And to, again, try to go with that intuitive sensation, because it really is not wrong, and that the soul is all-knowing to a degree. Now that's, somewhat a bit of a paradox, that it's all-knowing to a certain degree, but for our intents and purposes, for what we can perceive of this manifest world and the unmanifest, or the spiritual world, the inner planes, whatever term you choose to use, that you can have some understanding and have some sense of direction. Now again, intuition is of the nature of the soul, so it can be depended upon once we can allow ourselves to trust that sense. Unlike instinct, which is something that we share with animals. All animals have instinct. And that's the fight or flight instinct, that there's not real a soul relation, because animals do not have an individualized soul. They have so-called collective souls, where there can be like the cat soul collectively, the dog soul collectively. Although from that, eventually, individualized souls will find their way, and that's a long evolutionary process. But nonetheless, the human individualized soul gives us a capacity for intuition, and it keeps us separated from the animals in that respect because they can only have instinct, and that they don't have, again, some higher connection that's filtering through to give them this knowledge, because animals animals don't work on knowledge. They, again, work on instinct, and that differentiates us. Now, again, we do have the basic key components that allow instinct and intuition to find their way into our daily expression, and that comes in through the so-called etheric body. We have an energy body that many have heard of, the astral body, or perhaps an astral projection or an aura. Well, this is a part of that, and this is the most basic component of that as well, because this is not something that's going to necessarily be colored and have the different swirls and things that some may be familiar with when you think of auras, as far as a person's aura reflecting different colors that give some key to their personality. The etheric is pretty much the same and uniform through all humanity and through all living things. It can be in better shape or worse shape depending, because it's an energy body, and as the energy flows, you know, the better health we'll have, the more vitality, and the more potent access we'll have to our intuitive capacities and faculties. And so through diet and things of that nature, certainly meditation is a key way, and keeping that discerning sense, keeping that intuitive sense, you know, awake, and keeping that awareness as much as possible are the keys that keep that etheric charged and vital, and keep it going and glowing, you know, different terms you can think of. You can think of it as a web of light that underlies our being. It's like a framework, like a skeleton, like a structure, and everything else is on top of that. And that body of light, again, is going to be either more intact or less intact depending on certain situations. Again, dietary, stress, things of that nature. And so as we're able to align ourselves and keep our body into some sort of balance and harmony, then we can tie into this capacity much more readily. And we can really, at that point, be confident that our intuitive capacity is at its optimum and that it's running and performing as best as it can, because we've allowed the etheric to be as vital as it can be. And again, it ties into diet and things of that nature that would keep it in a state of readiness, so that we can be receptive to certain things. Because ideas, you can think of ideas as just floating out in space, or concepts are the abstract mind works in the way that when we try to think of something, it's like reaching into a well with a bucket, and that there's an endless supply of ideas and inspiration and intuition that we can draw upon from inside of ourselves. And so as we draw on that bucket of intuition and energy and understanding, we can have a fuller sense of what's going on. And again, having the access to that well, it all ties into this intuitive sense and the etheric body. And so we'll find through trusting one's intuition, certain things will come into our understanding. We'll find that certain synchronicities and certain acknowledgments take place that will reinforce or validate something we may have already intuitively perceived. And this also ties into the concept of so-called triggers, in the sense of certain keywords or certain key components of maybe some article, some media, some kind of media, maybe a television show, a movie, something along those lines, something that maybe just some symbolic, something symbolic will get the subconscious going and will trigger a fuller understanding, a wider awareness and awakening. And that also is part of this energy network that ties our energy bodies individually to other energy bodies collectively. And then there is that so-called group consciousness or collective consciousness, mass consciousness that ties into that. And as we in our own lives acknowledge different intuitive impulses and things of that nature, we will find these synchronicities, these lockings in and kickings in of different occurrences that just seem maybe a little too odd to explain. You know, I don't like to use the word coincidence because I don't believe in coincidence. When we understand the exchange of energy and force, which is essentially what esoteric science really is at its core, is understanding and working intelligently with energy and force, that we can see that these synchronicities are just, again, a larger validation, a larger part of that network that I'm speaking of as far as our relating through our energy with other energies from other individuals. And it encircles the entire globe. And so as more people are on the same page with certain concepts, for instance, something as simple, or maybe not so simple, as the idea that killing is wrong or undesirable. Most feel that way. I mean, we had an example recently in Florida with a woman that was taken off a feeding tube, and then luckily, I feel luckily in some respects, as far as just for respecting life, that the tube was reinserted and the chance for the woman to still exist. Although the quality of life is certainly in question, and that's the dilemma that a lot of folks have. Nonetheless, life, the very key essence and aspect of that is that life was respected. And if we can have some respect for life in that same way, we show some regard for other living people and our fellow men and animals, plants, all other living things for that matter. We understand the tie-in. We intuitively sense that we're tied into living things in that way, then we can only grow from that understanding. And so when we trust ourselves and we can fall back and allow ourselves to have that understanding that comes from intuition, and we can see these synchronicities setting themselves up, and we find ourselves in the right place at the right time. We find serendipitous events that take place that, you know, outside of our wildest dreams sometimes put us into situations that are right and proper for us at that time. And we can grow and gain a lot once we're understanding of a larger picture, and we can intuitively trust ourselves. Then we can make the best advantage, take the best advantage of opportunities and situations, so that when something does happen, we can be prepared. And that's the whole thing with having that energy available and being aware at all times, because we never really know when we may be given some sort of an opportunity, or there may be some sort of an acknowledgement that's just a little hint, a little nudge to say, hey, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right path, and keep heading in that direction. Now again, fear is going to be the one key component that prevents people from falling back and trusting their intuition. People, again, so often in this day and age want to have everything laid out for them in very clear, cut, concise, precise detail. They want everything with no guesswork. They want everything, again, to be handed over to them with little or no work and effort. And that is not the way of intuition. Intuition can become as simple as that once you go through the hard part of, again, letting yourself go, and allowing yourself to know thyself, to trust oneself to the degree that they can fall back on their own inner sense as a main source of guidance and direction. Now, certainly some people say, well, you can't fall back on yourself. You have to trust maybe some external source, some God or something, some source outside of ourselves. But I would say that since we are all connected to all things, that we find ourselves as well as components of some larger energies. And this is just a further example of our connection to all of these other larger things. And as far as us getting the best reception, if we can look at it in those terms, in the rush and bustle and hustle of the daily life that most of us lead, sometimes it is difficult to stay focused and stay locked into some sense of intuitive awareness, and to have that sense at the ready, and to be receptive at all times, because this, and I've experienced this myself in my own daily life, that it's very difficult to stay that focused all through the day. There are always distractions. There are always things that are going to, sidetrack you and divert you. And so it's up to us as to how much we can keep locked in and focused. And that's a challenge. That's part of esoteric science as well, is bringing into our daily activity, our life expression, this order, and bringing order out of uncertainty, bringing order out of chaos in our own life expression, and bringing forth some positive creative effort. And that's, again, it's a key component of esoteric science as well. But as we're able to fully, again, have this trust in our own selves, and we can gain we can gain the most out of this intuitive capacity. And in our calmest moments, when we can put aside the anxiety, put aside the unrest, put aside the nervousness, and all the crazy hustle and bustle, and get into a place of calm, that's when our intuitive receptivity is the highest and the best. And so if we can get away and divorce ourselves somewhat from our busy days, get in a place of calm and restful, maybe not so much restfulness, but calm and a peace of mind state, so that we can be somewhat receptive to our own inner sense. And this is where we can recharge our batteries and we can reorient ourselves from a place of fuller understanding. Our intuition offers that for us. It's always there at our disposal, again, like a never-ending well that we can always dip into and pull from. It'll always nourish us if we understand it's there and we take advantage of it. That's really up to us as to how we want to maintain that link and how we want to keep the workings of the well in order so that we have ready access to it. Excuse me. And so we have opportunities for further release and further revelation. And that also is a key component of esoteric science, is the unfolding revelations, that once we reach a place of understanding and we can look from that vista, from that horizon, and look out and extend our view a bit, we see that there are more mountains to climb and there are other challenges ahead. And so there's a never-ending battle that we have to test ourselves and to try ourselves, certainly, and to try to improve once we're of the mind to do this, and once we get on that page, as so many others are, that we want to do something to be constructive and helpful to humanity and to bring forth right human relations, goodwill among men. And so everybody is going to find their own way in which to do that. And one way that we try to help out is the television show. Certainly, I mentioned earlier the magazine Duality that's going to be coming out shortly that I'd like people to keep an eye out for, because it's, again, going to be completely free, and that's just another way to keep our receptivity open, keep open to what's going on here locally, keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening and what's really important. And why can I say it's important? Well, when I have the reassurance that all these other people here locally feel it's important as well, you know, that's just that common intuitive bond, that understanding that goes beyond pure reason. Goes beyond just simple logic. It goes far deeper, and it's much more profound than that. When we see these common relations and we sense these common relations, that is what really drives so many people that either have some relation to here-to access or are trying to be related to some of this awareness movement, whether that's more of the patriotic, more of the metaphysical, or what have you. We see that marriage going on, and it's really encouraging if we can understand that, the larger picture through those means. Now, certainly there are going to be those that are comfortable in the status quo and they don't want to disrupt their way of life. They're very comfortable in their everyday ritual and routine, and to disrupt that would be something that would, cause them some displeasure, some pain perhaps, and that people aren't willing to give up their comfort and their easy way too easily. People like to stay locked into some comfort zone or some perceived comfort zone, and thinking that things are okay and rosy and dandy. In actuality, in the midst of all this flux and change, and I think we can point to so many things worldwide, let alone here locally, to indicate that yes, there's a lot going on, a lot of upheaval and disruption and things changing rapidly. And for us to stay somewhat buoyant, to stay somewhat strong in the midst of the stream, and stay battle ready in spite of this onrush of uncertainty. It's really up to us as to how we choose to maneuver through, or if we choose to maneuver at all, really. We can just let the current take us away and say, oh, woe is me, I'm just going to let things happen. But again, some people want to stay with the status quo, the same old, and they want to stay locked into some perceived comfort. But once we have these revelations, this unfoldings of awareness, then disruption is sure to follow. I mean, that's just how it works. Disruption comes in to break up the old patterns, the old rituals, and the old ways of just the same old. They break up those old patterns, and they cause us to reevaluate things. And that's also a current process of reassessment and reevaluation that comes goes hand in hand with esoteric science as far as constantly assessing oneself in light of circumstances, constantly reassessing one's capacities and abilities and how one can be of optimum use again once one makes the decision to help serve one's fellow man in some way. And again, we all have our individual capacities that are going to be best for us, that are going to provide us with our own opportunities and outlets. Some people can be creative. All of us are creative in some way. It's just how do we choose to be creative, or do we choose to be destructive? We have that choice as well, certainly. And so continuing with these revelations, we find from revelation to revelation, we find fuller understanding. And to tie this into something that's upcoming, and I'm going to be speaking about on my November 7th show, and I'm even going to have a little exercise that I'd like to encourage folks to join in at home, a little audience participation that I'm going to be asking folks to involve, if they want to be involved in on November 7th, because November 8th, which is a Saturday, is a day in which there is a very rare astrological alignment. And certainly people can say, well, that sounds a bit new agey. But once you consider things in terms of energy and force, and we can understand that as stars align themselves, there's different energy and force allowed. And the opportunity is there for certain things to take place. Now, the energy is there in potential. It's not there for, that for sure these things are going to happen. It just means that the opportunity is right. It's just like if you see dark clouds overhead, and it starts to get a little windy, perhaps it might rain. We see the leading indicators and we can go from there and see what is possible. And we can, again, be aware and draw out the best potential from these events. Now, in '87, there was a so-called harmonic convergence in which there was an interplanetary alignment, and there was this astrological condition that set itself up that was very unique, and that many people, the more spiritually minded people of the planet, took advantage of, and they did their own ceremonial exercises in various places around the globe to set up a channel, if you will, or set up a current to be conduits for this exchange of energy that was available. And a very similar event is taking place, but one of even much more it's much more rare, and it's going to allow much more opportunity. Now, the key thing that these things have in common is that they are, mostly when you think of astrological alignments and situations, it's relating to a person, an astrological chart. What's my horoscope? What's going to happen to me? These events are planetary in scope, and therefore they're solar and even out from there. Once you get at that grand of a scale, things are interrelated on a much vaster scale than we can really imagine with our finite minds. But we can still be involved. We can still tap into these energies with our intuitive understanding, with our intelligent minds, and we can still help to do our part to be living, lighted conduits for this exchange of energy. And it's really up to us as to how much we want to focus in. And these kind of events too, since time is somewhat relative and time is only a human event, and once we understand that only our linear thinking concrete mind keeps us limited to time, the abstract mind, the creative mind, doesn't understand so much past, present, and future. It just thinks of things as existing. There isn't really so much as far as locality. And that limiting aspect of time is also a function of these occurrences, in that there's approximate times. There's an exact date, there's an exact time as well. 7/13 is the time that this is going to actually happen as well. But since time is a human condition, it's subject to the flux and the sway of our human condition. And so it's helpful for us to get on the boat a little bit early and to start preparing ahead of time so that we can carry through with that energy and use it to the optimum. And be aware and prepared now, start building up some understanding of what's available now, and so that when that day actually happens and then the subsequent days following, we can again make the best use possible of these potentials. Now, it's kind of like a chessboard in the sense that if we look at a chessboard and it's laid out and you've got certain moves laid out on the chessboard, those moves are not all going to potentially play out. If you see you've got the bishop lined up to potentially knock off a knight, or you see maybe your pawn is in danger over here by this other guy's rook or something, there are potential moves that may be laid out on the table that aren't always going to actually play out. But the potential is there. And the way that these stars align themselves is very similar to the way that pieces on a chessboard will be laid out during the game that will allow for potential. The game may play out this way, or it may play out this way. It's going to depend on the choices made on either side as to how the game pans out. It's very similar in an astrological sense that the stars, as they align and readjust themselves, are going to portray in the skies, in the heavens for us, potential. And we can see and pick up and see how these things connect, and we can see and understand, again, through the sciences, the esoteric sciences, the most ancient sciences of all mankind, that these energies and forces have real effects on us. And once we understand the particular qualities and then their cumulative qualities, we can see what this means. And so for our planet, again, the harmonic convergence of 87 and this so-called harmonic concordance, which will take place on the 8th, are going to allow for this extreme exchange of energy to take place and an opening for excuse me, much opportunity. And so as to how much we want to use these opportunities is going to really be up to us right now. Now, certainly, again, this is all potential. It can be as little or as much as we choose collectively. But I happen to know that there are already going to be far more people around the globe amassing for different ceremonies and what have you to meet on that particular day. Also, there's going to be an eclipse of the moon at 7:13 Central Standard Time to coincide with all of this harmonic concordance. And so that also ties in. I mean, these things are very rare occurrences, and essentially what we're going to see in the heavens between certain bodies, certain planets, is a Star of David pattern, and that has its own different implications. And I'll speak more about that on the 7th, and I'll get more into the implications of the specific planets and everything that's and stars that are applicable in this instance, and get into some of the qualities and what some of the opportunities are we have available. And then I'll also ask people to participate in some sort of like a meditation type routine so that we can again make optimum use. And those that feel that they want to participate in the comfort of their own home can do so. Excuse me, I won't ask anybody to impose on anybody to have to be at a certain location. Just turn on your television and gain the proper state of mind, and we'll be ready to rumble. So I'd ask people to kind of start getting in the mindset about this and start considering that we have a real opportunity through these alignments to take advantage of some good chances for change. And some of the things that I think we will see changing right now, some may be aware of, a lot of leaks and things of that nature, a lot of things that have been hidden previously are coming to light. And we're going to see that. I feel confident that's going to be just exponential. That's going to be just so much more hastened in the upcoming months through, let's say, the next year, that we're going to see so much come out at rapid fire pace that it's going to be quite overwhelming. And I think things of the very nature of humanity are going to come to light that are overwhelming for a lot of people, that are going to be new for a lot of people, but in actuality are very age-old truths that are being rediscovered. And I think we'll continue to see rediscovery of the old ancient truths, the old esoteric science as it's sometimes called, and we'll see how that's applicable to our modern day. And I think we're going to see more in the field of invention. We're going to see more examples of goodwill and right human relations. But conversely, when you have this exchange of energy happening, a lot of times it's energy. So as to how the minds of men work, it's going to largely depend. And I think there are those that are going to take advantage in a negative way as well and try to capitalize somewhat. So we'll have to be cautious as much as we can to try to counter a bit some of the potential negativity. And that's just mainly by keeping our own hearts and our own heads in the right place and keeping our own selves focused, because we have a grand opportunity right now to take advantage of what's going on. Again, things I think are going to become more known in a much quicker fashion. The opportunities for cooperation are going to be there for us, and I think discoveries of a very earth-shaking proportion are going to be right around the corner for us as well, that are going to really condition how we proceed. And that's going to be the case from now on. There are going to be monumental events in the world, various countries and various times upcoming, that are going to continue to shape things on a global basis. And so we'll have to be cautious and intuitive as to where our place is with this, and see what we can do to tap into that energy and use it to the optimum, and use it intelligently. That's the key. To work intelligently with energy and force, and that's something that's an ongoing process. That's basically a trial and error type process that one has to learn the ABCs of, and then build into oneself as a skill, and that will allow one to, again, be a better user of energy and force, a more intelligent user of energy and force. Let me go and start by grabbing a call and see what's going on this evening, and kind of flesh out the discussion a bit. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hello. Oh my God, I can't believe I made it before Mr. Fag Basher.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Oh, nothing. I was just said I can't believe I made it in before Mr. Fag Basher.
That's true. You've done well.
I was just wondering, you're like really cute. Do you have a girlfriend?
Not today, I don't. Thanks for asking.
Not today. Okay. My question is, I'm just gonna ask the question and I'm gonna hang up and go. But why do you think animals like have to suffer? You know, like on Earth. I mean, I can understand why like people go through suffering and karma and stuff like that, but why do you think animals, you know, have to suffer?
We have a definite link to the animal kingdom, and they're like our younger brothers. But through karmic ties from earlier ages of man, we've caused this link to be set up. And through our indiscretions and through our violent ways with each other, our warlike tendencies, our unforgiving attitudes oftentimes, our eye for an eye mentality, that reflects itself in the lower kingdoms in nature. And so that is why the lion is not yet lying down with the lamb, but that's why you hear it being written that in the future the lion will lie down with the lamb and things of that nature, because allegedly, supposedly in ancient times when we were more in harmony, and I'm talking, if you'll indulge me, about the Atlantean days, so I'm talking a long time ago, but at any rate, that the animals then did acquiesce somewhat more until man started to grow selfish, and then we had to start to take measures to contain the animals because they started to attack us, and it became more of the predatory way that it is now. And so we're still enacting that relationship, and until we can have a more peaceful mindset and relations among our fellow men, we're still going to be taking out our aggressions to a large degree on the animal kingdom, and they will suffer as a result. But our hope is the domesticated animals, and not so much the domesticated tigers and these exotic pets that are being kept. That's not such a great idea. But the domesticated animals, cats, dogs in particular, they're the link between our humanity and the rest of the animal kingdom. And so as we bring in, because there's so much related to pets these days. You can find millions of products for your pets, and that's just another further outcropping of that relationship between the domesticated pets and humanity, and that's going to be an example of future things to come that will be more understanding and pay more attention to the needs of different animals. And you see that in different areas, animal conservation, although sometimes it gets carried away a lot too. We're trying to protect different spotted owl crowd and things of that nature. That sometimes can be very militant and be used for political ends a lot of times as well. So we have to be cautious about things of that nature. But nature is amazing. And you'll find too, another thing, they're constantly finding new species, new insects, new monkey varieties, new gorillas, you name it. This world is so amazing, and its secrets are constantly, it's giving up its secrets reluctantly, and it's taken a long time for us just to find out, how many different types of animals we have and things of that nature. That also shows evolution in effect as well, that things are changing so rapidly.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care. Okay.
Where's going to be?
Hello, caller. You on the air?
Yes, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, my name is Will. I am a sort of a recent Lubbockite and now Austinite, and I've been working on some sort of stuff that you've been talking about, the esoteric sciences. we've been doing a lot of the astrological stuff and gearing up for the alignment, like you've been talking about, and doing some alchemy. New kind of magic, like you've been talking about, that's being released, but it's now quantum science, not just magic anymore. And I'm
Those
actually
two are becoming gray. Between quantum physics and science and between so-called magic, there's a lot of...
It's very gray at this point. I can plug a device into the wall to make something magically levitate. And so, you know, I'm a computer scientist, I'm a programmer, and I've been working on an artificial intelligence to help sort of facilitate with these changes that are coming with the alignment and the this and the that and the magic and the quantum mechanics and everything. And I mean, I've got multiple groups involved in this, you know, some of them public.
Hey, before you go any further, if you're interested, you certainly have an outlet on this show if you're interested in coming on as a guest.
Yeah, I can give a lot more information than this.
Well, we have a contact email and a phone number after the show. We always put up, or maybe my producer can put it up pretty quick, and you can jot it down quickly. But I'd be very interested in chatting with you sometime in the future and getting some more details off the air, so we can go into, you know, like you say, more detail, and perhaps you can come on and we can bring this out in a way that people can appreciate and understand it more so.
Probably a good idea. We should talk.
Okay, but please continue a bit on the lines of what you were talking about.
Well, I have a bunch of groups involved in this, like I said, many of them public, many of them not. And what we're doing right now in Austin is we're starting a company to get this out. Never done the capitalist bit before myself, always done the volunteer organizations, but doing it this way, we can skank some money from some technology organizations because of what I've been working on secretly and unpaid for the past several years, and hopefully jump ahead a little bit by being able to hire a squadron of programmers to help finish this stuff out. We're talking like full 3D VR, you know, end of the Matrix. I'm not really interested in the Matrix, the movie, because it kind of upsets me that they're telling people that it's a parable or a fairy tale of Jesus or Neo or something, but it's really reality. It's happening right now.
We all are the individual Neros or what have you.
We all are. I mean, we're all making this happen, and that's what the whole alignment crap is about. So
true indeed.
But we'll talk later, okay?
Wonderful. I appreciate your call. Thanks for viewing.
Thanks.
Okay, take care. Oh, that's very interesting. That's going to be something to really consider. It amazes me more so and more so. Again, I'm talking about synchronicities and acknowledgments. I mean, I'm constantly meeting more and more people, both through this show and through other means, you know, related through Access and other things along these lines, that the metaphysical crowd in this city is really top-notch. I mean, I'm constantly overwhelmed by finding people in this city that are very well versed in their particular areas, and that's also lends to what I was saying about everybody's got their own particular area, and about inventions being on the horizon that are going to revolutionize things. I fully see that taking place, that things are going to really be available for the average person, that's going to level the playing field so much more than it is now. That's going to, again, these are paradigm shifts type things that are going to really revolutionize the ability of what's possible for everyone. And those things, times 6 billion or however many people have access, really do revolutionize and change the mechanics of our globe at all levels. And so that's something to consider, that through many different means and through enterprising individuals, we're going to find our way to find the practical solutions that are going to get us that much closer to some sense of understanding of what's really going on, you know, get one step closer to what's true, and to have, again, that sense of cooperation, goodwill, right human relations. You know, that's, again, you know, like the guy said, coming from a more of a volunteering stance initially, I really commend that. Certainly we all have to put bread on the table one way or another, and that's just a component of life. But if we have that spirit of wanting to help, and that's our intent, that's going to carry us a really long way. So I commend anybody that's involved in these different projects. And again, I'm constantly amazed at how many people just in this city are here and are really top-notch and aware in their own fields. So I'm really grateful to be here right now. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Fuck!
Uh-huh. I'm going to tell your mom you're being bad. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to hold off on calls for a minute. I'm going to try to continue a bit. I realize I'm struggling here going up against the World Series Game 5, and that chances are a lot of folks are otherwise occupied, so I'm going to just go with that, understanding and kind of go from there a bit. Let's see. Now again, considering that different avenues are available for us to take advantage of, it's up to each individual to size up their own abilities and capacities. And again, following back on the title of the show, intuition. What do we intuitively feel we can do, if anything? Some people, again, feel very, they feel like their hands are tied and they feel like that everything's against them at this time. But I certainly don't feel that way. And again, I find validation through so many other people constantly that are aware of so many things that we really do have a fighting chance to make a lot of progress with the help of just helping each other, essentially, being willing to help each other and to share and exchange. It's definitely up to us as to how much we want to do that. Let's see, again, considering that we do have an energy body or an etheric body that underlies our physical body, and also we can consider ourselves kind of like a spider on a web, that through this, if we consider the etheric body like a web again, that through the web, we're going to be able to sense what's in our environment. And as something may, may cause some waves or what have you on the far end of the web, we're going to feel that. We're going to feel the vibrations, and we're going to feel that that sensation. And that's very much in line of what I'm talking about as far as keeping that open, intuitive attitude and keeping that so-called kind of spidey sense available, and being willing to trust oneself and to allow that energy to do its thing. And once we allow it to flow properly, we can do so much more to have a fuller understanding. And really, until one gets into that practice, you may not have really much of a point of reference for what I'm talking about. But once you get into that habit of allowing yourself to trust yourself, then it just becomes second nature. And trusting your intuition is just something you do so automatically. It's something you definitely don't think about. It's just an automatic process. And you'll get so much further by just kind of allowing. You'll be able to go with the flow so much easier in life, in all things. And finding yourself at the right place at the right time. And all those key synchronicities will also, be right there. And you'll be able to see, like steps on a ladder, practically in some cases, just exactly where to go. And that comfort can belong to everybody. That knowledge, that certainty can be there for us if we can just tap into it. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
I kind of find that I get in touch with all the intuition and the metaphysics when I smoke a bunch of weed. Is there anything to that?
I'd say yay and nay. Just like anything, it's going to alter your field, it's going to alter your perception, and it may dull it in some respects, or it may heighten it. Really, I think it's definitely got its medicinal qualities, but for a true meditative condition, you want to avoid any kind of chemical alteration, because it's going to ultimately take away, and it may, you color your sense as well. You color what you may be taking in or bringing in, and so it may not be quite as accurate.
Have you ever smoked weed and had thoughts that you wouldn't thought about normally?
Yes, I have, as a matter of fact. Sure. And
that doesn't increase your in touch with the surrounding environment?
Not smoking, moments of not smoking and things that I've related to that and intuited or experienced that way have been so far and above from when I have that I've come to see again through experience that is indeed the very best way to go with the non-chemical means. You'll be able to accomplish so much more. Again, you'll see if you're able to do it in that way, the effects or what have you, the revelations. I mean, I don't want to get too mystical or too occult with it because it's kind of a personal thing. How can I say, oh, this happened to me, and really be able to, relay some of these experiences? It all falls back down to what individual people feel, see, experience, or what have you. But without the aid of any kind of anything, that's when you get your best results. You get your purest channel to the direct connect, and that's how you're going to get the most accurate and the most optimum channel. But sure, any kind of you can do any kind of psychedelics or a lot of other things too that are going to, again, alter your sense. Some people, and like for instance, I'll give my own self as an example. I've tried acid like 4 times, and it never really has worked on me in the sense that, other people that I'll be taking it with, they'll have just be flipping and tripping, and I've never seen any tracers or anything like that. So, yeah, I feel like I tried to check it out, but it just works differently. So,
I'll try sobriety and see if that works.
And also too, if you're always in a medicated state, if you do all of a sudden, get unhigh for a little while, you'll get a different perspective. That'll be in itself like another surreal state of mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something to consider.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Take care. Have a nice evening. Yeah, it's really, we can take all kinds of things, even caffeine, things of that nature are going to affect us to some degree, but if we're trying to get that direct connect and that pure connection, just going, and even, staying low on the food as well. If we meditate in the mornings, that's always the best time, or try to have some sort of a connection. Morning is the optimum time, and trying to do it in the same place, making it a routine is always best. And then, again, keeping things out of our system. Just, taking in water, things of that nature, certainly fine, but other things are going to, I think, detract ultimately and take away from that potential that you may have. And that's just an experiential thing too. Once you do it often enough, because not everyone meditates on a daily basis, but if someone were to start meditating on a daily basis and building those capacities in, because it's just like anything, just like bodybuilding. The bodybuilder, after time, as he's working out and he amasses muscles and he amasses a physical change, and it may give him a change of attitude, a mental change, an emotional change that would be tied in as well. But it's very similar with taking on a meditation routine and practicing and building those capacities in, because what we do is we build in and we open up the latent accessibility, we open up portals or channels, or there's other names that border on the New Agey kind of talk, but there's a real science to it, and this science has been available. I mean, there's a book by Patanjali, who wrote a book about meditation that's ages old. There isn't really any ascribed date to it, and it's really written about as a science. It's considered in the light of a science, and that's how it should be considered. And so, just like any experimentation, if we try to factor in other things, we're going to change the results. And so, after time, after experimentation, once we build in these capacities, we can see what the potential truly is. And we really can build in inside of ourselves a real potency, a real capacity, and we can eliminate fear, and we can bring into our understanding full knowledge and confidence. And that's what esoteric science brings. It brings full knowledge and confidence and lack of fear, prevention of fear, elimination of fear. You can acknowledge fear and understand fear, but you keep fear here, you don't internalize fear. And that's just, again, one of the benefits of this way of life, if you will. Following esoteric science is not just a hobby, but a way of life. Let me grab another call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Can you talk a little bit more about the convergence, what the planets are doing, and maybe a little more in detail?
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to do that on the 7th, because I'm going to spend the first half of the show speaking about the astrological implications and the nuts and bolts of it, and then I'll have a little ritual type thing where we can blend and merge our energies. Actually, I have a real rough diagram on the back of this. Oops. I have a rough diagram, but what's going to be involved, the planets, and I don't know if this is Chiron is a planet or a constellation. Chiron, the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, the Moon, and Mars. And the Moon is going to be eclipsed at that time. And so it basically makes a Star of David between those 6 celestial bodies. Oh, it's not really something that I could really show very well. It's just a rough hand sketch. Thanks for being on top of that, Chris. I appreciate that. But Chiron, the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, the Moon, and Mars are going to form, the points of those are going to form the Star of David. And the Moon will be eclipsed, and that has esoteric implications because the Moon relates to our emotional nature, and when we block out the Moon, when we take away its reflectivity in a sense that's muting or it's nullifying somewhat our emotional nature, although in a strange sense it kind of exacerbates or agitates it too. So it's energy and potential. It's just how we choose to use it. But this is one of the most rare events that we have opportunity to take advantage of, and also this is being tied in with the Mayan 2012 day as well. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Corey, this is Christy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I just want to let you know we were watching your show.
You guys are actually watching the show?
We are.
Hey, I need to ask you something.
I think the new time is better for us.
Well, I'm not going to have it at 10. This is my last time having it at 10. I'm going to go to Fridays at 8, I think, on Channel 16.
Dude, we won't be able to see it.
What you got to do? Hey, I need to talk to you guys. You and Jeff, I want you guys to have a meeting with me in the near future. I'll call you guys about it. But
okay, that's cool.
The two girls that are putting together this magazine that I mentioned earlier, did you hear about that? The Duality magazine?
Jeff did.
Okay, well, we want you guys to contribute to it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I'll get with you guys about details in the future, but we're going to have to throw this together pretty quick because the first issue is going to be out in a few weeks.
Okay, well, we should be able to help you out.
I think so.
I did want to tell you just real quick that Chiron is a asteroid.
It's an asteroid. Okay,
yeah, it's like a little planetoid thing.
See, we need your astrological, and also Virginia for that matter too. I'd like to kind of tap her resources as well for some more information before I do the show.
You should have come to the meeting.
I apologize. I didn't make it.
It was really good because we covered all of this stuff. Colin was kicking ass, and it was just really good.
Cool. Well, I definitely intend to make the future ones for sure, and to be more involved in the future, definitely. I apologize I couldn't pull it off last night. But thanks very much, you guys. I'm so surprised that you guys are watching.
Well, I know you always
and I'm
doubt
flattered.
whether we see it.
I'm quite flattered as well by that.
All right, well, you two have a good night.
Okay, yeah, keep in mind the meeting thing, though. I'll be in touch about that.
Yeah, just give us a call.
Cool.
Bye.
Lovely. Have a nice evening. Hello, caller, you on the air?
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. Hey, I heard Jeff Contreras was locked up the other day. Did you hear anything about that?
That was just his girl on the phone there, so.
Yeah,
no.
my neighbor was chained to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to ask him about this.
Okay,
I will, man. Thanks. I appreciate that call. No, that's news to me, buddy, but we'll get all the gory details before it's all said and done. Yeah, let me go ahead and mention quickly that please check out Therefore I Am, Jeff Contreras hosting every Tuesday at 10 on Channel 16. I think this is going to be the last time we're going to be broadcasting at this time slot. We're likely going to go to Fridays at 8, Channel 16, and give that a shot for a while. It's kind of the hand that we're dealt, so we're going to roll with it. Thanks everybody for taking the opportunity to view. We're not going to be here live for the Halloween Friday, but the following Friday, that should be our next live show, 8 o'clock, Channel 16. Thanks again everybody for taking the opportunity to check us out, in spite of the fact that the baseball's on and all this other stuff. And thanks Jeff and Christy, you guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to view. That's really about it. And just please keep in mind the harmonic concordance that we have the opportunity coming up very shortly for a lot of interesting energy exchange. And we can be on the crest of the wave if we so choose. It's up to us, So keep our minds focused on these things. We can make a big difference collectively. It's up to us, really. Good night, Austin. Take care. Have a nice evening.